Today I'd like to briefly discuss a tale of two Orthodox Bibles. I am in possession of a number of study Bibles, some of which were given to me by friends, some which I bought myself. I've found that study Bibles are an excellent resource to have on hand because they give you access to many years of academic research done by scholars, some of whom have devoted their professional lives to understanding and documenting the archaeology, cultures, and linguistics of the scriptures. One unique study Bible I found and purchased at a thrift store is known as the Orthodox Study Bible, published by Thomas Nelson, copyright 2008, by St. Athanasius Academy of Orthodox Theology. Now, I had seen a number of Roman Catholic study Bibles before, but I had never seen an Orthodox study Bible. When you open this book, you find an introduction on the first few pages. The first paragraph of the introduction summarizes the purpose and origins of this study Bible. And I'm quoting, "The last decade of the 20th century saw an historic event. In 1993, the Orthodox Study Bible, New Testament and Psalms, was released as the first English Bible with study material reflecting the ancient faith of the Eastern Orthodox Church." Now, you may ask, why take time to study with an Orthodox Bible if you're not Orthodox? Well, there are millions of people across the globe who follow Yeshua according to the Orthodox tradition. It's estimated actually 225 million. So I thought I might benefit from understanding those areas where Protestants agree, as well as those areas where we don't agree. And it just so happens that I found that there are areas where we agree significantly. But today this message is about a topic on which we unfortunately must disagree. While browsing through the extensive study notes in the Orthodox Bible, I noticed some comments attached to the book of Romans. Quoting again from the text itself, I'm reading, quote, "The Orthodox Church rejects any teaching that man has a sin nature or that man's nature is depraved to the core." Now, this teaching is in direct conflict with the evangelical Protestant position that all human beings are sinners by choice and sinners by nature. Whenever we encounter a disagreement or a conflict like this, we don't want to respond by declaring war on the opposite position, which in this case is the Orthodox tradition. Instead, we we have to turn to the scriptures themselves, because that's really all that we have to enable us to actually find what's true. Now, the first scripture that came to my mind when I read this study note about man being basically good, it comes from the book of Jeremiah, where Jeremiah is telling us, the heart is deceitful above all else and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Now, I don't see any way that that could be interpreted as in any way stating that humanity is basically good. In fact, Jeremiah seems to be saying the exact opposite, that the heart is desperately wicked. And some evangelicals have actually called that total depravity. That's what Jeremiah is saying here. And David, the psalmist, King David, in one of his psalms, says something very similar. He states in Psalm 51, "Surely I have been a sinner from birth, and in sin did my mother conceive me." So again, it's even before David had done anything good or bad, even when he was in his mother's womb, there was already a nature or a propensity in David's heart toward sin, toward shaking his fist at God, toward disobedience toward God. So David is in agreement with the prophet Jeremiah. And later in the New Testament, we come to the Apostle Paul, where in the book of Romans, Paul is saying concerning himself, he's saying, Romans 17, verse 7, "For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not." It's interesting that Paul is saying this, because the people who wrote the study notes for this Orthodox text are actually trying to use Paul to prove that man is basically good. The only difference is they're quoting a different verse. They're quoting the verse where Paul is saying, "But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me." They're saying that because Paul in this verse is claiming that it is not I who do it, but sin that dwells in me, that's their proof that man is basically good, that Paul is basically good, because he's stating it's not me, it's the sin in me, this entity in me that is making me do wrong or making me commit sin. And that's almost reminiscent of what some people in our modern culture say. The devil made me do it. I'm being made to do it against my better nature. That's what this tradition is claiming. The problem with that is, in this very verse, Paul, if you read the verse carefully, it says, "But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me." The key words in this verse are the words "no longer," "no longer," which imply that there was a time in Paul's past when it was Paul, it was the real Paul that was committing sin. But now that he's given his life to Yeshua, now that he's given his life to Messiah, it is no longer Paul, it is no longer I that sins, but the fallen nature that used to be me, that is what is committing the sin. And if you go through the scriptures and you search the scriptures through the Old Testament, through the New Testament, you see again and again this same theme coming up, that man is desperately wicked. It's not just the acts of sin that we commit, but it's the nature of sin that is in us from birth. Just as David said, "Surely I have been a sinner from birth." And as Jeremiah was saying, it's the heart. The heart is deceitful above all else and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Jeremiah is asking the question, can we even know our own hearts? Our hearts are so deceitful that ultimately we deceive ourselves. And unfortunately, our brothers in the Orthodox tradition, this is something that they've been caught up with, this deception about who we really are. And I just pray that they will listen to these verses that I pointed out, and other verses that say similar things, and reconsider this notion of humanity being basically good. Unfortunately, this is not scriptural. Thank you.